This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that, your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that, a place for comfort, a time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences, entirely online. Designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. Happy New Year. I hope it's a happy New Year's Eve. Predators have a game tonight. But Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you don't overly celebrate tonight. Hope there's a lot to celebrate for and looking forward to the new year. So, personnel changes, not as new now. On the 28th, Nashville did trade Juuso Parssinen and a 7th round 2026 draft pick for Andre Pavel, and a third round 2027 draft pick on the heels of the December 8th trade Carrier to Montreal for Barron. Barron, I guess, has been a healthy scratch. So a trade on the 18th for a couple of defensemen, a trade on the 20th for a couple of centers. I don't necessarily see that as an indicator that the Predators have, the Predator management anyway, has given up. Interesting to see how it works itself out. The Preds obviously are having some issues on defense, which is causing them to lose. We are, 37? Is that what it was? 37 games. There are 40. The Preds have played 37 games. There are 45 left. So we're about halfway through the season, and the Preds haven't quite figured out how to play together. Obviously, they've gotten better in some respects, but the 3-0 loss last night to Winnipeg, not really surprising to lose to Winnipeg, but not to have a goal scored. I think that goes back to one of the things I was talking about. I think I mentioned in a previous podcast about how when all of your best players are on the same line, then the other team only has to really focus on one line. When Forsberg, Marchessault, and Stamkos are out, then they need to be on guard. If those three guys aren't out, they don't need to worry so much. So it makes the team a lot easier to defend. They are playing well. Forsberg hasn't gotten a goal since, November 25th? But he's gotten a lot of assists. I don't really see a problem that he's hadn't scored a goal since then. The problem really is that they're not winning the games they need to win. So back before the December 10th Calgary game, I had mentioned I thought the Preds needed to go 8-2 in the last 10 games of the year in order to show that they were on the right track. They are 4-1 so far, which is close to 500, which I guess given the rest of the season is not so bad. They've got 11 wins, and they've got a third of them in the last few games. So that part is encouraging, but overall not really getting to the point where they really need to be. The loss to St. Louis the other night, I think, was extremely disappointing. That to me was that was so bad. So again, the loss to Winnipeg, not necessarily. I mean, they are one of the best teams in the league, but the loss to St. Louis. They lost to Pittsburgh in overtime. They had a number of chances to win. They beat the Rangers, lost to Colorado, beat Dallas. They're starting to look like they could be in a good position, but where are they at? There's 45 games left. They've got 29 points. They need to get to 93, 94 points, so they need 64 points, and there's only 45 games to do it in. So the opportunity is slipping.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that, your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
As one of my cousins mentioned over Christmas, hockey is one of those sports where you can go on a run and change your fortunes. And obviously the Preds did that last year with an 18-game point streak going 16-0-2. The question is whether or not that happens in the next month, because the trade deadline is March 7th. Things are going to happen. I don't really see the Preds trading. You'd have to say at this point the core of the team is Marchessault, Saros, Forsberg, and Stamkos, the highest paid players on the team. Also, no trade clauses. And Josi and Skay, the core of the team, doesn't mean that the rest of the team couldn't be shored up or that they would take advantage of being able to make some moves. I think their drafts, the number of draft picks they've got a lot of draft picks coming up in the next draft, and leveraging some of the draft picks maybe, and a couple of the players who are playing really well, but not part of the core, would be a way to try to steal players, get players that could make a difference in the overall effort of the team, with other teams that are potentially giving up, right? Just looking here at the roster, so Forsberg, Marchessault, Rosie, Josi, Stamkos, they're all up here at the top. Ryan O'Reilly, I wouldn't I'm not sure I would call him part of the core of the team. Well, actually, depending on who was available, I could see them trading O'Reilly. I could see them trading O'Reilly in order to get maybe somebody, I assume younger. I don't really know that much about O'Reilly, but he's 33. Okay, he's 33. Got some good stats. If the Preds were really out of the playoffs, they could potentially move O'Reilly to a team that was going to make a playoff run, kind of do him a little bit of a favor, having a better chance at, maybe winning the cup and getting somebody. I think my first thought was like Zachary Leroux, as they call him, but Leroux, because he's playing really well, young player, and could leverage his potential. Would hate to see him go, but I think, Evangelista and Nyquist, two of the guys up there, definitely on the probably on the shorter list of teams looking to, maybe make their third or fourth line better. But I think Leroux probably one of the more likely people to be on the trading block. That Adam Wilsby, but Mark Delgazzo, somebody's looking for defensemen. Zvechkov played well back down in the AHL. All kind of depends on what teams are starting to look for, but not really looking for the Preds to make significant changes. But which I think is like the Parsonen and the Carrier trade, trying to shore up how they're playing. They did call up, kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself. But he did play last night, so I guess I'm not giving anything away. But Henostra was recalled from the Milwaukee Admirals, and he is, I guess, the highest scoring player in the AHL. So definitely trying to pick up their scoring. They put him on the fourth line, which for his first game up, maybe that makes sense. But if you're looking for scoring, wouldn't have him on the fourth line. But, definitely needs to get an opportunity to play with the guys before thrusting him into a higher line. I guess he is 30, so he's an older player, been around for a while, so understands how to play the game of hockey, how to play at a high level. So I could see him moving into, one of the, the second or third line, or, potentially he's the center. That doesn't really mean anything because they play in all kinds of different positions. But you could see them, playing on the wing. Maybe putting Marcia Show, leaving Stamkos with Forsberg, putting Marcia Show on the second line with O'Reilly, and then Henostra, and kind of spreading out the scores to where you've got more than one line to worry about because you've got more than one line that can reliably score. That's the scoring is definitely where the Preds need to pick things up. If there's anything, not losing the second period by scoring more, I guess would be overall what the Preds need to do to win. That is the main thing. The Preds, when they lose the second period like they did against Winnipeg last night, they lose. Especially on the road. When they win the second period on the road, they're 3-1. Every win that they've had on the road, they won the second period. The first period, they're 0-3. So in the first period, in the three wins they've got, there's so many wins for this to be so statistically relevant. But the first period, when they won, they lost the first period at once and tied it. So winning the first period on the road hasn't helped. In fact, overall, they're 6-7. Winning the first period, they're 8-2. Winning the game when they win the second period, and 8-3 winning the third period. Again, I like to take the empty nets out of that, so they're 5-5 if you take out empty nets, because they were winning the game anyway and they scored more goals. So if you take out the empty nets, then they didn't necessarily win that period. They won it because of the empty net, which means they were winning the game anyway. But they were 5-5, so the highest correlation to winning the game is to win the second period. Like I said, they are 8-2 when they win the second period, 2-16 when they lose it, and 1-8 when they tie, and that's all overall. But that is 37 games worth, which is more than 20. I guess we're at 18, right? 19 games on the road now, 18 at home, 19. So they've gotten to the place where the Preds are fairly equal in games played on the road and at home. It was a significant imbalance there for a while, but 19. So 20 is the magic number in statistics for relevancy in general. I know all you real statisticians out there want to quarrel with me about that statement that I make, but it's in general. Generalities, trends that we're talking about. And you have to say, second period on the road, they're 3-1 when they win it. They're 0-9 when they lose it, and 0-6 when they tie. So, yeah, it'd be nice if they won more games and the numbers were different. Because as I told another one of my cousins over Christmas, when everything points to losing, it's kind of hard to make that kind of statistical analysis make sense or be meaningful. Because if no matter what you do, you lose. What is there to change, right? Anyhow, yeah, we watched a little bit of the game last night, and then decided to do something else. And I was checking in on the scores, and as soon as I heard that they had, I think it was late in the second period, but yeah, once they gave up the goal in the second period and lost the second period, handwriting was on the wall. And then, the penalties late, giving them a 5-on-3, and then they scored 5-on-3, and then they scored 5-on-4 right after that. The Preds definitely need to take less penalties. That is so true. I think when it goes to penalties in the league, the Preds are at the top of penalties taken, and there are teams that take a lot of penalties and are scoring and are decent in the standings. But let's see. Penalty minutes. We've got Boston, Utah, Florida, Buffalo, New Jersey, Montreal, Calgary, New York, San Jose. Wow. Nashville is 12th. Winnipeg is 10th. There you go. Proof of the pudding. Proof in the pudding. The one of the top teams in the league is 10th in giving penalties, and the Preds are 12th. Yeah. Well, the Preds are one of the better penalty killing teams. So Winnipeg's got 55 penalties. Nashville's got 29 at 327, and Winnipeg is 55 at 335. Wow. Is that right? P is points. Oh, points. Never mind. Yeah, of course. Of course they're going to be on top of points. Not penalties. So many initials. Okay. Well, anyway, so there is the playoff watch segment.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that. A place for comfort. A time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences, entirely online. Designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
How about the opponents? Okay, so the Preds are on a tough road trip. They're going to be playing two of the top teams of the league. They played one last night. They're playing the other tonight. They do get to play Winnipeg again. So on this road trip, they play two of the top teams in the league, and they play one of them twice. I thought it was interesting last night that the announcer, I'm not sure, not the play-by-play or color, the lady that does the intermissions said, they were on a 5-game road trip. Well, they're in a 6-game road trip. And it started in St. Louis. I guess 5 games do start in Winnipeg. That part is true, but it is a 6-game road trip. They started in St. Louis, where they lost 7-4. And they've got a back-to-back Winnipeg last night, losing 0-3. And they play Minnesota tonight. And then the next 2 games are also a back-to-back. In 3 days, they play Vancouver and Calgary back-to-back. And then they get a couple more days off, and they go back to Winnipeg to finish off the road trip. So the opponents we're talking about today are the middle two, Minnesota and Vancouver. So Minnesota. This is the second game of 3 versus Minnesota, the second one in Minnesota. The first game was a month ago and was one of the 2-3 overtime losses that the Preds were having a string of. And these two teams will meet again in about 3 weeks. Minnesota is 22-11-4 overall, which is pretty good. 9-8-1 at home, so maybe not the best home team, running right about 500 at home. They are second in the Central with 48 points. They are 7 points behind Winnipeg, who has played one more game. That would have been last night. And they are 4 points ahead of Colorado, playing the same number of games. This is the second game of 2 at home. The other game was a loss, a 1-3 loss to Ottawa on Sunday. After this, they go on a 2-game road trip. Vancouver. This is the second game of 3 with Vancouver, and the second one in Vancouver. These two teams, the description is just about the same. The game with Vancouver was a little bit earlier and was a win. So they won 5-3 against Vancouver the first time they met in Vancouver. And in about 4 weeks, they will meet in Nashville. So both Minnesota and Vancouver, we're playing them 3 times. And the next 2 games are the second game at their location. And then in about 3 weeks, both of those teams will be coming to Nashville. The difference is we beat Vancouver the first time, and we lost in a tough overtime loss to Minnesota. Vancouver is 17-10-8. The 8 is the lead in the league, 8 overtime losses. Nashville, Calgary, and the Islanders all have 7. At home, they are 7-7-6. So both Minnesota and Vancouver are about 500 at home. Vancouver is 4th in the Central with 42 points. They're 3 points behind Edmonton and 1 point ahead of Calgary. Both of those have played one more game than Vancouver. And this is a one-game homestand for them. For Vancouver. They do play tonight. They play Calgary, and then Thursday they will play Seattle. So between now and when they play again, they'll play 2 more, and Nashville will be the second part of a back-to-back for Vancouver. They'll play at Seattle on Thursday and then be home on Friday to play Nashville. Notable personnel changes. So Minnesota, top person to watch, number 97, Kirill Kaprizov, was day-to-day. ESPN still shows him as day-to-day. Puckpedia shows him not. He was expected back for today's game, so I think it's looking like he's going to be playing. I was kind of hoping he would not be because he is first in goals, first in assists, of course, first in points, second in plus-minus, second time on ice, second in shots, and second in shooting percentage. So he is Mr. Offense for Minnesota. And, it would have been nice for him not to be back, that I wish somebody to be ill or injured. But, he's got 23 goals, 27 assists for 50 points. His plus-minus is 21. So I guess, that's 29 goals scored while he's on the ice. So I guess, that is the guy to watch. If he's on the ice, something is going to happen. Second in time on ice for a wing, that, usually you get a defenseman or the tops. He's not top. There's a defenseman who is top, but he's second in shots with 120 and second in shooting percentage at 19%. Shoots a lot, and, he's got a high enough PK that it matters. And so he's been day-to-day. Expect him back tonight. Center Jakub Lako on injury reserve. No real notable stats. Defenseman Jake Middleton is also on injured reserve. He's first in plus-minus at 22. Center Joel Eriksson Ek was activated from injured reserve on the 29th, and center Yakov Trenin, we know him, activated back on the 23rd. So they've got 2 centers back in their line, Ek and Trenin, and the people out basically are center Lako and defenseman Middleton. For Vancouver, they have key people out. and they're going to be out. And boy, I hate seeing people go out. I hate seeing people go out injured. But for Vancouver, defenseman Quinn Hughes is a huge loss. He's first in assists with 34, makes him first in points with 42. He's first in plus minus with 14. He's first in time on ice with 25.08. First in shots on 109. They're going to miss him. Thankfully. And center Elias Pettersson is out. He's second in points with 28. Defenseman Philip Hronik on injured reserve, first in plus minus and second in time on ice. So those three players they are going to miss, two defensemen and a center. So those two defensemen are their top. It's got to be their top line, the top time on ice. So so their defense is going to be a little short without their number one defense pair. Good, hopefully, for the Preds. And they recalled defenseman Guillaume Bribois, left wing Philippe de Giuseppe. Giuseppe. In French, you pronounce the vowels, don't pronounce consonants unless they're followed by vowels. Guillaume Brisebois, defenseman Guillaume Brisebois, left wing Philippe de Giuseppe, center Max Sasson from the Abbotsford Canucks. Boring. The Abbotsford Canucks. Little town, maybe not so little, southeast of Vancouver, but which is convenient. But they've recalled those three, a defenseman, a left wing, and a center. And so that's the personnel changes for Vancouver. People to watch with Minnesota, number 97, left wing Kirill Kaprizov does everything. Had to come up with somebody else. And so somebody else is number 11, left wing Matt Boldy. He's second in goals with 13, right? So first on their team is 23 and second is 13. He's also second in assists with 18, 9 less, points 31. So that Kaprizov has 19 points more than the second place person on their team. Huge loss when he goes out. Boldy is first on shots with 122. So there you go. Number 97, Kaprizov is the guy to watch. Something's going to happen when he's on the ice. And number 11, left wing Matt Boldy. So two left wings there. For Vancouver, with Quinn, Hughes, Peterson, Hronik out, they had to do a little bit of hunting for somebody to look for. Number 74, left wing, Jake DeBrusk, first in goals, 16. That wasn't so hard to find. Third in shots and third in shooting percentage. So DeBrusk, left wing DeBrusk, number 74. Number 6, right wing Brock Bozer, second in goals with 13. Second in shooting percentage, 24%. 13 goals on 53 shots. Number 8, Connor Garland, second assist, 18. And second in points with 28. So number 74, number 6, number 8 for Vancouver. So that's your opponents. Okay, so Preds, the Nashville Predators. Having lost the last two games, they are 11-19-7. They are now 3-12-4. On the road. They are 7th in the Central Division with 29 points. They are 3 points ahead of Chicago, even on points played. They are 9 points behind both St. Louis and Utah. Utah has played one less. The Blues have played one more. That still doesn't put them into a playoff spot, but that's as far as the division goes. You have to beat the teams in your division before you can go anywhere else. Right now, 42 points. Vancouver at 42 points has the second wild card spot. That's 13 points ahead of Nashville. Nashville has crawled above San Jose, who has played 2 more games, and they are ahead of Chicago in their own conference. And I believe, okay, so then that's it. The Sharks and the Blackhawks are the teams below the Predators. There's a log jam at 32 points with Buffalo, Detroit, and Anaheim. And then, the Rangers. The Rangers, what the heck? The Rangers have really tanked since trading away Trouba. I think I got that name right. Trouba, their center Trouba. Jakob Trouba to the Ducks. Wow. Wasn't that long ago that Washington was in a playoff position, but looks like they have lost 4 in a row. They've lost 7 of their last 8. 7 of their last 8, 9 of their last 11. Mr. Quick, Jonathan Quick, has gotten 2 losses in that time period. One of those losses, Shesterkin was in goal, but Nashville got the win back on the 17th. They won the next game in Dallas and then lost 4 in a row. Those guys, they have dropped like a rock since making that trade for whatever that's worth. But anyway, so the Preds are 13 points out of a playoff spot, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to get the points. So the upcoming 2 games are the middle 2 of a 6-game road trip. They are 0-2-0 on this road trip. Personnel changes, the notable Cole Smith, right wing Cole Smith is on injured reserve, supposed to be back in February, supposed to return in February. They have the trade with Juuso Parssinen. They received center Andre Pavel. Don't know when or if he's going to play. And they have recalled. I did see some terminology. They, what was it? I think it was for Vancouver. I thought the terminology was interesting. They on the 17th they summoned right wing Linus Karlsson from Ebbsville. Mr. Karlsson, you have been summoned to play with the Vancouver Canucks. How do you plead? Nah, I'm going to stay right here. I'm good. No problem. They recalled Guillaume Brisebois, but they summoned Linus Karlsson. Could be something to do with whether they're on a 2-way or 1-way contract. I don't know. Didn't look into it. I just thought the terminology was hilarious. But that was Vancouver. That's not Predators personnel changes. Vinny Hinostroza was recalled. He was not summoned. He was recalled. You are recalled. From the Milwaukee Admirals. He played last night on the 4th line. Don't know that he actually. Don't know that he didn't, but don't know that he had much. What did he have here? He had 1 shot on goal. He's played in 1 game, has 1 shot on goal, and all these other stats are 0. So welcome to the NHL. People to watch. Okay, this has gotten exciting. For the longest time, it was Forsberg and Josi, but now, last night's game broke a streak of 8 games for Marchessault, getting a point. But number 81, right wing, Jonathan Marchessault, first in goals, 3rd in assists, 2nd in points, 2nd in shots. I didn't, I wrote the script yesterday, and oddly enough, I didn't have to change. Well, I guess the shots probably changed, but the number of goals and assists didn't. Number 91, center Steven Stamkos, 2nd in goals with 11. Number 9, left wing Philip Forsberg, 3rd in goals with 9, hasn't scored in 15 games now, 11 November 25th, last time. He's first in assists, though, at 21, first in points and first in shots. Defenseman Roman Josi, second in assists with 17, first time on ice, 24.56, and last in plus minus with 23. But that could have changed last night. 24. It is now 24, last in plus minus with 24. His time on ice went down to 24.49 from 24.56. Since they didn't score any goals, all of the assists and those numbers would all be the same. Shots would change. Let's see, 123 for Forsberg. He had 122, so he only got one shot last night. Marcia Show had 108, also one shot last night. I think I'm seeing a problem here. Josi, 96. I didn't write down because, I know this is this Pred's, whatever it is, Predator proclivity. And we're supposed to talk about numbers. And so we can talk about more than one or two Nashville Predators. We're talking about 4. But, talking about who is 7th in number of shots or shooting percentage, there are parts of this show that I think become really good bedtime sleeping material for all of you out there who have trouble sleeping at night. And if I spent my time talking about who was 7th on the shooting percentage list, heaven help anybody that is driving while listening to this. 7th in the shooting percentage, actually, Zachary Leheureux at 10.5%. He has 38 shots and 4 goals. Top of the list is Fedor Zvechkov, who happens to be down in the AHL. Second, Juuso Parssinen, who no longer plays for the Predators. Then we get into Gustav Nyquist and Ryan O'Reilly, following them up Stamkos and Marcia Show. There you go. Hey, let's take a quick look at the plus minus. Let's see if anybody is positive. Ooh, wow. Blankenberg. Hey, defenseman Blankenberg has got a plus minus of 5, leads the team. Then Wilsby, another newcomer. Gravel. Because good to see Kevin Gravel back up. I don't think he was playing last night. But ex-King, played for the Kings when I was paying attention. Glad to see him here in Nashville. Glad to see him back with the main club. I think he's a good player. He played really good. I think he was on the ice against the Rangers. Did a bang-up job. Pred stats on the road. Oh, man. Getting the first goal. Well, getting the first goal. Well, they're 3-5-11 when they get the first goal. So I guess 3-5-11 to get the first goal. And on the road, well, they've only won 3 on the road. How is this right? 4, 9, and 6. What the heck is that? But yeah, anyway, that's not what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. That was, those numbers were winning the period. Decided to start looking at my spreadsheet. I've got all these numbers and I copied them over into my doc and it gets confusing because then all I'm doing is I'm spending an hour updating numbers that are in the spreadsheet. So I said, let's not look at the doc. Let's look at the spreadsheet. Of course, then I don't know what I'm looking at in the spreadsheet. But the first goal on the road, they're 2-3-2 when they get it, 1-9-2 when they don't. So there's nothing really noticeable there. 1-0 when they happens in the second period. If the first goal of the game is scored in the second period, it's generally not not good. The Preds are 1-0 overall, 2-6-0 when they don't get it, and it happens in the second period. I guess when they don't get it, they're 3-13-2, which is bad. When they do get it, they're 8-6-5, which is not good. So I guess you'd rather get it than not. Last year was a big advantage for the Preds when they got it, especially, I think, at home. This year at home, when they get it, they're 6-3-3. Of course, they're not at home tonight, so who cares? But 2-4 when they do not at home. Again, they're not playing at home tonight. So they're 2-3-2 on the road when they do get it. When it happens in the first period, they're 1-3-2. So they've 2 wins when they get it. One time they got it in the first period, one time they got it in the second period. This is not really a trend. It's not really anything we can count on. Winning by period on the road. Well, their stats just look bad. The first period, they're 3-5-11. The second period, 4-9-6. The third period, 3-9-7. And overtime, 0-4-0. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The Preds have not gone to a shootout yet this year. I don't know where that puts them on in the standings, but yeah, kind of interesting that there has not been a shootout. Here we go, shootout statistics. Shootouts games plays, the highest. Let's see, what is the highest here? 5. The Flyers have 5 shootouts. So you get down here, 24 teams have had at least one. 24 teams, so that means there are 8 teams that have not had any shootouts. The Devils, Rangers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, Caps, Preds, Oilers, and Jets. Not that that's indicative of anything, but just kind of curious. Not even one so far. When the Preds win on the road, the first period they're 0-1-2, so they have not won the first period and won a game. They are 3-0-0 in the second period when they win. So every time they win on the road, they win the second period. And let's see, just for grins at home, they're 5-2-1. Interesting. They're 6-0-2 when they win. They won at home 6 times. 6-0-2. They win the first period. 6 of those were wins, but they're on the road. And 1-0-2 in the third period on the road. So one of the wins, they won the third period as well. So so last night it felt pretty good when the Preds did not win the first period. I thought, well, there you go. That's a better sign than not. 3-5-11. But in the first period, 4-9-6 in the second. So, yeah. But then when they lost the second period, I think it was pretty much had gone the way it was going to go. Lost the second period, lose the game. Yeah. So I covered this a little bit earlier, the correlation between winning the periods and winning the game. Again, third period, overall 5-5, taking out the empty nets. Away 1-4. So, yeah, the winning goal overall, that probably didn't change too much. 16% in the first. The highest percentage is 32%. That's overall, regardless of outcome. When the Preds lose, 38% of the time, the winning goal is scored in the second period. When the Preds win, the highest percentage is in the third with 36%, which is right on target, I think, with last year. Let's see, they're not playing at home, so let's look at the away statistics. 47% of the time, the winning goal is scored in the second period. That's overall. When the Preds win, 3 wins. Twice it was in the second period. And then for the opposition, 44% of the time, their winning goal comes in the second period. So the second period is pivotal. That's when the winning goal is being scored on the road, regardless of who's winning. The opposition is primarily scoring in the second period. The Preds are primarily scoring it in the second period. Again, the second period is critical. And looking at the second period, goal scoring, they are being outscored by 14 overall. On the road, they're being outscored by 8, which is not as bad, but 14-22. So they're being outscored by about 50% more goals. Which if you the third period on the road, it's 10-16. So they're being out, and that's taking out the empty nets. With the empty nets in it, it's 12-24. But they've given up 8 empty net goals on the road. They've gotten 2. So 12-24 becomes 10-16. That's pretty high. When the Preds win, interestingly enough, on the road they're being outscored in the first. They're 1-2, and then in the second 8-2. So when they win, they are outscoring the team by quite a bit, and then in the third period 3-2. So the first and third periods together becomes 4-4, and the second period is 8-2. So 12-6 is the total, and normalizing out 4-2. Again, I guess taking out, they've got 2 empty net goals. So if you take the 2 empty net goals out, the Preds are scoring 1 and giving up 2 in both the first and third on the road, and their wins. When they lose, 8-12 in the first, 6-20 in the second, and 9-22 in the third. 8 of those are empty nets, so 9-14. So 8-12 and 9-14. Still being outscored in both of those periods, but it's not as bad. 6-20 in the second period when they lose on the road. So that's, a huge number of goals. The lowest goal scoring is in the second period when they lose. And they've lost a lot of games, so it's statistically relevant that way, right? And that when a lose, that includes the overtime losses. So, when at home, when they lose, they're averaging 6. When they lose, they're not averaging. They've scored 6 goals. So overall, when they lose in the second period, they've scored 12 goals in the second period. And when they lose in the first, they've scored 20. 20 in the first, 12 in the second, and 13 in the third. Obviously, the goal scoring gets to be kind of an issue, right? And then the second period, again, how many times can I say that? Anyhow, the overall on the road, normalizing per game, averaging it out, the Preds are scoring 1.7 goals to the opposition's 2.9. When they lose, 1.4 to 3.1, removing the empty net goals, which I think is fair because you want to see how the team was doing. The Preds scored 2 empty net goals, which in one game, and one of their opposition did 2, which kind of inflates third period scorings. Just trying to look to see what the scoring was looking like, when the game was still, being repeated on a normal manner. So, yeah. So anyway, so that's the goal scoring. The Preds, I don't know how. I've tried to do a number of analysis on looking at shift times for teams that are playing well. I think I was looking at the Capitals. Need to, it'd be really interesting to all the data that I'm working off of is what I'm seeing online and putting into my spreadsheets. And I know the NHL has this database, and I shudder to think how much time I'd have my head in trying to do analysis, trying to figure out what the differences are between a team that's successful in the second period and the Predators. Yeah, I've tried. I've looked at a number of things, and it always comes back to it's not one thing. It's not one thing. In this case, it is one thing. The Preds need to play better in the second period, but it's not necessarily one thing. It's not penalty minutes, because if you look at penalty minutes in the second period, and teams that will have more penalty minutes in the second period have a better record, are in playoff positions, maybe one of the best teams. There you go. We were just looking at something earlier today, and Winnipeg was one of the teams. They're one of the top teams in the league, and they've got a stat that's worse than the Predators. You can look at all these stats, and every stat you will see somebody that a team. The penalty minutes. I was, looking at penalty minutes. I think the Preds would be better if they weren't in the penalty box so much. But no one thing, no one stat is the thing that you can look at and point and go, hey, that's why the Predators aren't losing. It's just not there. That making that general statement, I do have to say, I think the second period is significant. And it was significant last year, which is why I have this podcast, because I got so frustrated watching the Preds at home in the second period. And so I said, okay, am I losing it here, or is there something to this? And there was something to that. I was wrong about first goal. The announcers like to talk about how the most important thing is scoring the first goal. And I was like, well, that's a bunch of bunk. Bunk or not, statistically, it was significant last year. So not one stat or one aspect of the game. Last year overall, the Preds, when they got the first goal, that's not right. I've got my dates set up wrong. I need to change this so I see the whole season. So not one stat is going to be the thing that is that meaningful. Yeah, last season the Preds were 35-10-3. 35-10-3 when they got the first goal. That's a 3.5 advantage. Throw the overtime losses in, 35-13, but still huge. And then, but didn't affect them so much. They were 12-20-2. So the other team getting the first goal wasn't the biggest advantage for them. On the road, it was 19-5-1 when they got the first goal. 19-5-1. Huge advantage for the Preds last year when they got the first goal. This year, not working out that way. I've got my spreadsheet set up so I can look at ranges of games. So I can look at the games from, October 10th to say December 10th or December 10th to December 29th, and try to do the analysis there and saying, okay, what have the Preds done since the beginning of the season that because let's take out those first 5 games and how does it look? Well, the problem is they lost 9 in a row. So, in the middle of the season, let's go back, take a look. Okay, so October 22nd through November 23rd, and maybe I'll do that because maybe I need some good news. But anyway, so there's not just one stat, I guess, is what I'm trying to say that is meaningful as far as the Predators winning or changing their changing their fate. I can't. The Scottish accent is eluding me right now. Change your fate. Anyway, I'll work on that later. But so anyway, that's the Predators' numbers, the Predators' stats. Let's get a little long here, but let's get to the matchups. So Minnesota, the 2 games that we're looking at, Minnesota and Vancouver. So last year the Preds were 2-2 against Minnesota, splitting both home and away. So 1-1 on the road. They did win the middle 2 games, 3-2 and 6-1. 6 was a popular score with Minnesota last year because the first game in Nashville they lost 1-6. So the first and third games were both 6-1, 1-6. Minnesota won the first, Nashville won the third. This year they're only playing 3. The fourth game against Minnesota was an overtime loss, 3-2. But the Preds were 2-2 against Minnesota last year. And last year, the Preds didn't score in the first 2 periods of the first 2 games, and they went 1-1. So their only scoring was in the third period against Minnesota last year in the first 2 games. In those 4 games, they didn't get the first goal at all, despite the big advantage that they did have in getting the first goal. That 2 of those two of those games were wins, and they didn't get the first goal. And as far as where the Wild are now 4-6-0 in their last 10 games. They're still one of the better teams in the league, but they are not playing well here. And probably part of that, I don't think Kiprasov was out for that long, but it didn't help. Vancouver. Last year, Nashville was 0-3 in the regular season versus Vancouver, 2-4 in the playoffs. Both wins in the playoffs were in Vancouver, 4-1 and 2-1. In the regular season, the Preds only won 1 period out of 9. They won 7 of 19 in the postseason. Preds only won 1 period. It was the second. They got 3 goals. And that was the 5-3 win earlier this year. Yes, earlier this year in the 5-3 win, they only won the 1 period, tied the other 2. It was the second period. Miracle of miracles. The Preds did not get the first goal in the regular season last year. They did in the first 2 games against Vancouver in the postseason. They went 1-1. And this year in the win, they did get the first goal. As far as the Canucks, they play at Calgary tonight, and they play Seattle on Thursday, and then play the Preds on Friday. So they will have a back-to-back in that circumstance. Excluding those 2 games, they are 3-3-4 in their last 10 games. They really like to have that 500 aspect to their season this year. Looking at comparing the different teams, Minnesota has scored 107 goals, Vancouver 111, Nashville 88. I'd say Minnesota, they get 68% of their goals from even strength, 13% 5-on-4, which 17% of their chances. So they are not the best power play or penalty kill. Minnesota, 26% of the goals scored against them, 99. So they have 99 goals scored against to 107. But 26% of the goals scored against them is on the penalty kill. So they are 70%. I think that put them 31st in the league. They do not have a good penalty kill. They do not have a good power play. They were in 17% of the goals scored on the power play. Oddly enough, 8% of their goals, pretty high percentage, is scored when the other team pulls their goaltender. And Vancouver, 19% of their goals is scored on the power play, which is 23% of the time. So their power play is pretty good, getting 1 out of 4, and that is 19% of their goal scoring. And then 5% comes when the other team pulls their goaltender, 68%. Nashville, for comparison, only 56% of their goals are scored 5-on-5. 23% is scored on the power play, but that's only 19% efficiency. So that's not that great. 9% of their goals have been scored when the other team pulls their goaltender. They don't score that many goals, so that's 8. 8 goals out of 88. So you definitely need to score more goals. As far as goals scoring against, again, only 58% of the goals in Minnesota are scored 5-on-5. Vancouver similarly at 60%. Vancouver does have more goals scored against. Again, that 500 ball, the 500 were even, Steven, whatever you want to call it. For Vancouver, they have scored 111 and they've given up 111. 60% of the goals given up 5-on-5, 15% on the power play for 81% efficiency, which is pretty good, but they're still giving up 15% of their goals. 6%, again, they have highest 8, 6% 3-on-3, so in overtime, and then 5% is given up when they are 5-on-6. So when the other team has pulled their goaltender, so 5% of there. Nashville, primarily 65% 5-on-5, 9% of power play, 2 last night. So generally, they're pretty good. 12% of the goals scored against Nashville scored when Nashville pulls their goaltender. So that really skews things there. What's at 12, right? So that would roll things back. Vancouver's only given up 5. So Vancouver without the empty nets would be giving up 106 to Nashville's 105. So very similar. And Minnesota 5. So that would be 94. So they're not giving up as many goals, definitely scoring more goals than they're getting. They have 9 empty net goals that would take them down to 98-4 versus 94 against. Close. Definitely the 4-on-5. The penalty kill against Minnesota is the opportunity to score against them. Scoring by quarter, the Minnesota scores more in the third period, that's the scoring against. They score even, taking out the empty net goals, they're even in the second and third periods with 33 goals in the second and third period with 28 in the first. Vancouver, 32, 39, empty net goals taken out 31. So they are getting more goals in the second than the first and third. Not the Preds. The Preds scoring 28 in the first, 27 in the second, and 25 in the third. 23, taking out the empty net goals. So their goal scoring goes down the later they go in the game. But they give up 25, 40, and 30. So 40 goals, definitely they give up more. Vancouver gives up 35. Interestingly enough, they give up the least in the second period. So they've given up 34, 30, 34 in the first, 30 in the second, and then 40 or 35 in the third. We're taking out the empty net goals. So a lot of goals scored against them, but they give up more by the numbers than the first and third than the second. Looking at the Nashville Edge to see how the teams match up, it was interesting. The teams matched up pretty pretty evenly. Minnesota and Vancouver, they score more goals, so of course they've got more goals. They're more shooting. Their top shot speed is higher, the same three things. Minnesota and Nashville, although their numbers looked really similar, and then actually Nashville looked better than Vancouver, except for those three things, which makes sense because they're not scoring the goals. But other than scoring goals, and then other things that are kind of interesting, Minnesota is above average scoring from the right point. That was, I've looked at other teams and and the right point doesn't seem like a popular place to score from, but that's where Minnesota has an advantage. And oddly enough, Nashville's right wing, so closer down to the blue line, closer down to the red line, to the goalie on the right side, Nashville is above average in scoring from over there. Just kind of a couple of interesting little points. Not sure that's going to make too much of a difference, but I think the Preds have a pretty good opportunity tonight and Friday to pull off 2 wins. And Minnesota, look for the Preds to capitalize on the power play and preferably more likely. Minnesota gives up goals 27-28 in the first and second, and give up way more in the third. But they don't score as much, 28, 40, 33, and 33. So, I think the Preds have a good opportunity on the power play against Minnesota. Vancouver's given up a bunch of goals. It looks like the first and third periods are the better opportunities. They need to hold tight in the second period because Vancouver does score most of their goals in the second period. Minnesota evenly between the second and third. So, yeah, I think that's what to look for. The Preds need to hold serve on their penalty kill, take advantage of being on the power play against both of these teams, really, but definitely against Minnesota. And so momentum. Minnesota, they're 5th in the league, but they have had a rough go of it lately. They've lost 4 in a row. They did lose 4 in a row, 1-2, and then lost their last game. So they're 2-5 in their last 7. The teams they played, when they lost 4 in a row, were the Vegas Knights, who are 1st in the league, Florida, who's 8th, and Winnipeg, who's 2nd, and then Utah throw in there. Utah was the first game in a back-to-back with Winnipeg, so maybe they were looking past Winnipeg. So they did lose 4 in a row, but to teams that are, no slouches. Vancouver started streaky, but they're lately they're throwing out one win to a bunch of losses or a couple losses. No rhyme or reason. They can beat Winnipeg and lose to San Jose. And so they no rhyme or reason to how their season is going. So anybody can beat them, which means the Preds have a good shot. Nashville should have beaten St. Louis. Should have played better against Winnipeg. They've got this back-to-back. I have my back-to-back spreadsheet, and I forgot to look that up. But anyway, they should have beaten St. Louis and should have played better against Winnipeg. Hopefully they'll turn all that around. Goaltenders. Minnesota, Philip Gustafsson gets the most work, 16-6-3. Marc-Andre Fleury is next at 6-3-1. Jesper Wallstedt is 0-2-0. He played in the losses to Vancouver to Vegas and Winnipeg in that last 4-loss streak. Could not quite figure out why they had called him up. It did not look like anybody was injured. But But there you go. So they've got 3 goaltenders that have played recently. Gustafsson has played the last 3, which looks like in general the number of games that he plays, and then they put Fleury in goal. According to Puckpedia has Gustafsson in goal, but I think it's going to be Fleury. Last year against Nashville, Gustafsson was goal in the first 3 last year, which would have been the first win and 2 losses. He was in goal in the game earlier this season that was an overtime loss for the Preds. Fleury was in goal for the 4th game last year, the 3-4 overtime. But yeah, I expect Fleury in goal tonight. For Vancouver, ex-Pred Kevin Lankinen has gotten the bulk of the work, 14-5-4, with Arturs Silovs at 1-4-1. But he was sent back to Abbotsford. Thatcher Demko, 2-1-3, came off injured reserve in early December. He is slated to be the primary goalie, but he's been injured, which is why they went out and they got Lankinen. Last year in the postseason, Silovs was in goal for the last 3 games, which were all wins. Demko was in goal for 2 of 3 last year. Last year, Vancouver swept Nashville. DeSmith was in goal the first one. I have DeSmith as the backup, but DeSmith was the primary goaltender last year. Demko or Lankinen was in goal earlier this season when Nashville did win, and so they've got 2 games between now and Nashville. So I'm expecting Demko to be in goal for Calgary and Seattle, and then to see Lankinen in goal versus Nashville. As far as Nashville goes, Minnesota, tonight's game is the second half, the back half of a back-to-back. Saros was in goal last night, so expecting to see Annunen in goal, which Puckpedia is not. It's not Puckpedia that does I forget what site does the expected goals. Yeah, Saros was a goal last night. Last year, Annunen was in goal in a 5-2 win for Colorado. So, yeah, Annunen will be in goal tonight. So Saros isn't going to do the back-to-back. All right, players to watch for. Just a reminder, we're playing Minnesota tonight and Vancouver on Friday. Tonight, number 97, Mr. Excitement, Kirill Kaprizov, left wing, first in everything. So, whenever he's on the ice, something is going to happen. Number 97, Kaprizov. Number 11, Boldy. For Vancouver, the number of people are out for them, including their top defensive line. So number 74, left wing Jake DeBrusk. Number 6, right wing Brock Boser. And number 8, Connor Garland. My best guess is for people to watch, 74, 6, and 8 for Vancouver. So there you go. The Preds continue their road trip with another border crossing in Winnipeg last night, in Minnesota tonight, and back across the border to Vancouver. So Minnesota and Vancouver. Those are the next 2 games. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.